Have you ever thought about undead? Significantly thought about them when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons? Well, on my TikTok channel, I had a couple of people actually asking questions about undead and healing magic, and it got me to really thinking about the different types of undead there are, but how they can affect your game, not just from a thematic standpoint, but from a mechanic standpoint, and how adventurers and players and creatures and people and necromancers could view the world. So I gave it some thought. And what I really came down to was there are three types of undead. Those types of undead really make a difference in how combat goes and how pretty much everything in the game goes if you're using undead. So let's talk about them. The three types of undead in Dungeons and Dragons and other TTRPGs. I'm going to switch off saying D&D soon. So undead number one, the Incorporeal Undead. These are your ghosts. They're your shadows. They're your banshees. Basically, they don't have a physical form. We can understand these undead very, very well because they're a soul, they're a spirit, they're an echo of something that used to exist in this world, and they are the remnants of something alive. These undead make sense to us. So from a thematic standpoint and from a reason of existence, I get it. We all get it. In fact, it's easy to come up with why that undead may actually be there. The problem is mechanically telling the difference between the undead. Without outright telling your players exactly what they're dealing with, how do you show them, hey, you're dealing with a banshee? You hear the wailing in the distance. Well, that's kind of metagaming. Well, how do you tell them they're a ghost? Or how do you tell them they're a shadow? And then are we out of undead? Or should there be more incorporeal undead after that? Are there more incorporeal undead? What incorporeal undead do you like to use? Can I say incorporeal one more time? The thing really boils down to when you're dealing with a ghost-like apparition, it becomes a ghost or a banshee. It really seems to fit the tropes. In fact, I was trying to come up with a lot of undead variants, and I just couldn't do it. When it came to those that could pass through walls that didn't have a spectrum, the thing that kept popping into my head was, Slimer from the Ghostbusters. But then again, he's not really an undead. He's more just kind of a thing. And so that's what got me to think that a incorporeal undead can be as interesting, as beautiful, as wonderful, as diverse as a lot of the other creatures. What about a ghost-like undead that was electrocuted by lightning and now is a lightning apparition? What if one that actually brings fire to places, right? We can add the elementals to them as well. When you take an incorporeal undead, a ghost, and you start applying different things to it, they start to really flush out. They become unique. They become something more than just a ghost, a banshee, or a specter. They become, what would you say, more well-rounded, and something that maybe your players haven't seen before. So adding a little bit of flavor, adding a little bit of nuance to the incorporeal can really do them justice. Now, Undead 2, the animated objects. Now this one really got me. Skeletons were easy to figure out, right? A skeleton is simply a puppet. Some kind of creature, being, soul, necromantic energy is causing a skeleton to animate. There's nothing fancy about this. The skeleton itself does not exist without something moving it around. That much we do know for sure. And so when we look at skeletons, we can simply understand that there's a negative energy that's actually moving these things around. That works incredibly well for us. But then we move to zombies. Well, there's some debate, right? Does the zombie actually need its muscle fire to move? Or is it a skeleton that's being animated and the flesh on the outside is just cushioning and padding? Well, it depends on your view of skeletons. Now we have skeletons that are brought around by viruses, magical parasites, fungus, pure necromantic energy, which makes zombies an interesting factor in your game depending on how they're being used. Are they an animated object, or are they something that's still clinging to some semblance of not life, but undeath? And so how zombies function adds some curiosity to them. And so I did a book talking about elemental zombies, fire zombies, and water zombies, and time zombies. Basically, what happens when elemental energies actually kind of instill and become part of that zombie. They are the thing that's animating a corpse. And what it came down to is that anything that is living that becomes animated has to defile something that was of radiant, of life. And by defiling it, it becomes undead. And that was the problem I had with zombies and skeletons when it comes to TTRPGs, is what's moving them? What's causing them to move around? When we look at the virus-style zombies in modern day era, if you cut off the arm, it doesn't just reattach its arm. And it doesn't necessarily know it has pain, but if you sever its, muscles, it can't walk anymore. It's the same concept. Finally, we have the undead that are creatures themselves. These are the ghouls, wraiths, revenants. This book of Undead goes on and on and on about things that are of the negative plane of energy. The thing is what is an undead when it's still a creature? Is it actually undead or not? That's what makes the difference. These are where we can really have exploration in there, but we'll never really know whether or not they're truly dead or truly alive, or if they're a creature. So that's the one. What would you do? Where would you go with the creatures? Are they actually dead, or are they just things filled with negative energy? And guys, as always, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and as always, we will see you next time.